All right, so welcome to another deep dive. This time we're exploring something pretty unique, the rules of a Discord server called, get this, Danieltopia.
Danieltopia.
Yeah, Danieltopia. It's like we're taking a field trip into like a self-governing
Yeah.
digital society,
I like that.
Yeah, and obviously people are familiar with Discord and how communities form on Discord, but this one, it really got our attention because of just how complex their system of rules is.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've got excerpts from like their official Rules of Danieltopia document, and then some really interesting links that give us like more context. So,
Okay.
yeah, what's interesting here?
Yeah,
is,
what's really striking to me is just the level of detail and structure that they've, actually implemented here. It really challenges that common perception of these online spaces as being inherently chaotic or unregulated, right?
Absolutely, and get this, they have a king. A whole hierarchy of officials. They even have like an impeachment process.
Whoa.
Yeah, and there's even this rule where, like, if you break a number chain in one of their channels, that's our shit. You get muted for like an amount of time proportional to the number that you broke. So like if it was like 1, 2, 3, and you said 5, you'd be muted for 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild. It really makes you wonder about the social dynamics at play, right?
Absolutely.
Like what kind of community leads to those kinds of rules?
Right.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Article 1, the basics, kind of lays the groundwork, right? It's all about respect, appropriate content, keeping things, well, let's just say family-friendly. They're pretty straightforward about it.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. And honestly, I kind of appreciate the directness. It really sets a clear tone, doesn't it? For the type of environment they're trying to cultivate, safe, inclusive.
Yeah, definitely. It's also worth noting how they've organized like different channels for different purposes. Like you've got your spam, your bot commands, but then they also have dedicated spaces for debates, promotions.
Well, it's like they're really consciously architecting the space to accommodate like all these different types of interactions, It's not just like an organic free-for-all.
No, not at all.
There's also this one rule that really caught my eye. No begging for moderator status.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a formal application process.
That's so interesting.
Right.
It really suggests that they value a meritocratic approach.
Yeah.
It's not about who's the loudest or, most persistent.
Yeah.
It's about who can actually demonstrate the qualities and commitment that they deem important for leadership roles.
Right. You gotta earn it. Okay, so Article 2, staff. Buckle up.
Yeah.
Because this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They basically outline this whole hierarchy of leadership, starting with, of course, the king, then princes with an S, president, VP, mods, and even trial mods.
Wow. Trial mods.
Yeah, it's really quite something. It's like imagine a digital monarchy, right? But then blended with like elements of a republic.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah, and they even refer to like their leadership as DT Congress, DT for Danieltopia. And it's got like upper and lower houses, just like, real world government structures.
It's fascinating how they're drawing these parallels.
I know. And the thing is, it's not just for show. They've actually incorporated checks and balances.
Oh, okay.
So like the king can revoke permissions, the staff conducts votes, and there's even potential for citizens, quote unquote, to be involved in certain decisions.
Wow. It's like a real functioning government.
Yeah.
Almost.
I know, right?
Right.
It's pretty impressive. Oh, and here's a twist. The king can potentially be replaced.
By who?
Your community.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Talk about power to the people, right?
That's really interesting.
It's almost like a constitutional monarchy in a way. They have this figurehead leader, but even the king isn't above the collective will of the community.
I'm really intrigued by this whole setup.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. So Article 3, Prez campaigning. This is for anyone who has aspirations of becoming the president of Danieltopia.
Okay.
And it outlines the rules of the game. And it's not as easy as just, throwing your hat in the ring.
No, so there are like eligibility requirements.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you have to have a certain activity level and server tenure. So, they really value experience and demonstrated engagement within the community.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and also you can't run solo.
Oh, okay.
You need a running mate, and there are limitations on like switching them, which is interesting.
Right, so you have to choose wisely from the start.
Yeah, you got to think strategically, right? And then on top of that, there's a term limit on the presidency. Yeah, they emphasize the principle of power rotation.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's not, it's not a dictatorship.
Right, right.
I'm curious to get your thoughts actually on this whole blend, right?
Yeah.
Of monarchy and then democratic principles.
Yeah, honestly, it's like they're conducting a fascinating experiment in digital governance.
Yeah.
They're trying to strike this balance, I think, between having this centralized authority figure, but also having a system that distributes power.
Yeah.
And encourages participation from the community.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, how different forms of governance might adapt and evolve in these online environments, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a whole new world out there. Okay, Article 4, Pres voting. This lays out the rules for how these digital elections go down. And it's interesting, inclusivity seems to be a major theme here.
Okay, so.
Well, to vote, you have to be verified, you have to reach a certain level of participation, and you have to have been a member for a minimum amount of time.
Oh, so they're not letting just anyone who stumbles into the server vote.
No. They're basically establishing this threshold for engagement to make sure that the voters actually have a genuine stake in the community.
Right. It prevents fly-by-night voters from swaying outcomes.
Exactly. And to prevent any undue influence from, the powers that be, the king actually can't vote for the first 36 hours of the election.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And they even have runoff elections, and none of these candidates option.
That's great.
Yeah, it really speaks to their commitment to having a fair and representative process, right?
Absolutely. It gives a voice to those people who may not align with any of the candidates who are, presented.
Exactly. Article V, Pres Ascension. This is where they detail the inauguration process. And okay, you're not going to believe this.
Okay.
The newly elected president has to paste the entire script of the B movie into the inauguration channel.
What?
Yeah. It's apparently a time-honored tradition.
The entire script.
The entire script.
That's incredible.
I know, right?
And I'm honestly struggling to wrap my head around this.
Yeah, is it just for laughs, or is there something deeper going on?
Right. I mean, it's so bizarre. Maybe it's like a test of commitment.
Yeah.
Pasting that whole thing. It takes a certain level of dedication.
It does. It really does. But, I mean, you'd think there would be an easier way to demonstrate that.
Yeah, you'd think so. But, I mean, it definitely injects some personality into the whole thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
You wouldn't see that happening in a real-world inauguration.
No, absolutely not.
But, they've also outlined a process for the VP to step up if the president is unavailable, which shows, they have thought about contingencies.
Sure.
Yeah. But replacing the VP, that's more limited, which, again, I think points to their focus on stability and continuity. Yeah, they seem to really value that. It's interesting how, they're weaving together these elements of formality and playfulness. It creates this really approachable vibe.
I agree.
It's a reminder that even in this digital world, with structured governance, there's still room for fun and absurdity.
Absolutely. All right, so Article 6, impeachment. This is where things take a more serious turn. They clearly don't take misconduct by officials lightly.
Okay.
They actually define what impeachment, conviction, and removal actually mean within the context of their server.
Oh, so they have their own mini legal framework.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And while they do have a formal process, the king or princes can immediately remove someone in extreme cases.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're really balancing that need for due process with the need for swift action in situations that could actually harm the community, harassment or vandalism. And it's not just about reacting to bad behavior. They actually emphasize that this article about impeachment applies to all staff members, not just the president.
Oh, okay.
So it reinforces this sense of accountability, across the board.
Yeah, no one's above the law, so to speak. Before we move on, I want to circle back to something that's been in the back of my mind. This whole thing about the king being replaced, like you said, either by the staff or by the entire community.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, right?
It is. I mean, it really shows their commitment to
Yeah.
checks and balances, that even the highest authority figure isn't like completely untouchable.
Exactly. It really speaks to like this profound level of shared responsibility
Mm,
and a belief in the power of collective action. It's pretty cool.
it really is.
Okay, so onto the epilogue. This is where they kind of briefly acknowledge Discord's overarching guidelines. They reaffirm their commitment to wholesomeness and inclusivity and then they throw in this rule about breathing oxygen.
Wait, breathing oxygen?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's literally in there.
What, like as a
Yeah.
as a requirement for being a member?
Pretty much, yeah. It's hilarious.
That's amazing. I mean, it's such a great reminder that they don't take themselves too seriously. They've got this whole structured system of governance, but they also know how to have fun with it.
Yeah, I love that about them. It makes the whole system feel less intimidating and more human, you know?
Absolutely.
So before we move on to like the next part of our deep dive, I
Yeah.
just want to get your like overall impressions. What stands out to you the most about these rules so far?
Honestly, I think just the level of intentionality. They're not just throwing together some random list of rules.
Yeah.
They're thinking about it. They're borrowing from real world systems of governance,
Great.
adapting them to like
Yeah.
the unique dynamics
Yeah.
of this online community. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And it makes you rethink the potential of online spaces, right? It's not just about like fleeting interactions or mindless entertainment. You can actually build structured communities with a sense of purpose
No.
and shared values.
Exactly. And they've done it with this really interesting mix of like seriousness and humor, which makes it, approachable. It's a reminder that behind these rules are real people
Yeah.
trying to connect and create something meaningful.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. All right. So we're going to pause here. And when we come back, we'll be diving into these cool links that they've provided, which promise even more insights into the history and culture of Danieltopia.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our deep dive into Danieltopia.
Yeah. So we've kind of laid the groundwork, right, with their rules, and now we're moving on to these cool links that they've provided. It's like they've given us a treasure map to their history and culture.
It really does spark your curiosity because you realize that these links
Yeah.
offer this whole other multifaceted perspective. It goes beyond just that formal structure of the rules.
Totally. So first up, we have a timeline of Danieltopia's existence.
Okay, so this is where we can trace their evolution.
Yeah, from their humble beginnings, right,
Yeah.
to their current state as this structured digital society.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not just like a dry list of dates. Like we see leadership changes, major events, even like rule revisions.
So we can really observe
Yeah.
the evolution of the server's culture. It's almost like an anthropologist studying a civilization.
Okay,
Right.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. And speaking of like cultural artifacts, there's this link to an amusingly translated version of their rules. It seems like it went through a few rounds of machine translation, which created some unintentionally hilarious result.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a good reminder of how like language can morph and take on these new meanings, sometimes in ways that we don't expect.
Yeah, and maybe it's also a testament to the importance of clear communication, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're establishing these rules and guidelines.
Totally. Okay, so then we have links to a first story chain and a special video.
These look like examples of like community-created content.
Yeah, like a glimpse into the creative spirit of Danieltopia's members.
I'd be curious to see how those creative endeavors
Yeah,
kind of reflect their shared experiences and values.
absolutely, yeah. All right, moving on. We have a blank slate document titled People of Danieltopia. It's a comprehensive list of all their members, past and present.
Oh, wow. So it's like a digital census almost.
Yeah, capturing the human element
Mhm.
behind this online community.
And we can see like their roles, their contributions, maybe even their nicknames.
Yeah, it's all in there. It really suggests that this is a community that values its members and their individual stories.
That's great.
Okay, and then another blank slate document, this one called List of Presidents. It's a record of all the leaders who have shaped Danieltopia.
So we can see their terms of office, their accomplishments,
Yeah.
maybe even any controversies.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. It's like a digital Hall of Fame, right?
I love that.
All right, and then finally, we have this collection of links to flourish visualizations.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I love a good data visualization.
Me too.
And
Yeah.
and these are beautifully crafted, like charts and graphs that really tell the story of Danieltopia in this visual way.
So what kind of visualizations are we talking about?
Well, we see scatter plots
Mm-hmm.
showing the tenure of presidents and VPs, bar charts illustrating the length of service for mods,
Interesting.
and even like a hypothetical parliament based on years of participation.
Wow, so they're really like using data to understand and improve
Yeah.
their own community.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It really is. It speaks to like a level of self-awareness
Mhm.
and a willingness to like learn from their own history.
Totally, yeah. They're not just focused on like governing the present. They're also thinking about preserving their past and using it to inform their future.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to circle back for a second to something we mentioned. At the beginning of this whole deep dive, remember when we talked about the king and the impeachment process?
Oh, right. Yeah, that definitely piqued my interest. It seemed like a pretty heavy-handed approach, honestly, for an online community.
Well, it turns out
Mm.
the king is actually the server's founder, Daniel.
Oh, so the server is literally named after it.
Exactly. And the impeachment process, while it might sound dramatic, actually applies to all staff members, not just the president.
Okay, so it's more of a general accountability mechanism.
Right. And while, you know, the king has ultimate authority, we learn that even he can be replaced.
Right, by either a unanimous vote from the staff or the entire community.
Exactly.
Which is a significant check on his power.
It is. It really shows. They recognize that leadership isn't about absolute control. It's about serving the community's best interests.
Right, right. And what about those princes that we mentioned earlier? They seemed a bit mysterious, almost like figures from a fairy tale.
Yeah, from what I've gathered
Yeah.
from these links, it seems like they're high-ranking staff members with significant influence, almost like advisors to the king.
Okay, so they play a key role in governance, maybe acting as like tiebreakers in staff decisions or offering guidance based on their experience.
It seems like a lot of responsibility rests on their shoulders.
Yeah, definitely. And these cool links really highlight like the rich history of Danieltopia with all its presidents and VPs and moderators.
Right, like there are all these shout-outs
Mhm.
to past leaders and prominent community members. It creates this sense of shared history and recognition.
Yeah, it's like they're acknowledging the contributions of those who helped shape Danieltopia into what it is today.
I like that.
And those flourish visualizations.
Oh, yeah.
They're so cool. They reveal these trends that we might not have noticed otherwise. Like, you know, the average length of a presidential term or the distribution of members across different roles.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It seems like they approach their community with this blend
Yeah.
of playfulness and seriousness. Like they have this elaborate system of governance, but then they throw in like Kuoi, the B-movie inauguration tradition.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like they're saying, yes, we take structure and leadership seriously, but we also don't want to lose sight of the fun and the camaraderie that make online communities so special.
Exactly. It's this delicate balance to strike.
Totally.
So, having explored both their rules and their history,
Right.
what's your overall impression of Danieltopia so far?
Honestly, I'm really impressed by the level of thought and care that they've put into creating this online world. It's clearly more than just a platform for chatting or playing games.
It's a community, you know?
Yeah.
With a strong sense of identity and shared purpose.
And while they do have a clear hierarchy, they've also built in these mechanisms to ensure like fairness, accountability, and even the possibility of removing leaders is necessary.
Yeah, it's really a testament to their commitment to building this thriving and inclusive online environment.
Absolutely. Well, I'm eager to hear your final thoughts on Danieltopia as we wrap up this deep dive in part 3.
Let's delve into our concluding analysis and see what broader insights we can glean from this fascinating case study.
All right, so welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into this world of Danieltopia.
Yeah, we've really gone deep, haven't we?
We have. We've explored those intricate rules. We've dug into their history and even got a taste of their data-driven approach.
I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It really is, and it's not just about, the data or the rules. It's also about the personality, right? That kind of shines through.
Absolutely, yeah. Like that whole bee movie thing.
Oh, don't even get me started on the B movie.
It's so quirky and unexpected.
But it works, It somehow fits.
It does, yeah. Kind of speaks to their overall vibe.
Okay, so let's step back for a minute. Big picture time.
Okay.
What does Danieltopia tell us, really, about online communities? About how they're evolving.
It's really interesting because it challenges that whole idea that online spaces are like inherently fleeting or superficial.
Right, right. It's easy to dismiss them as, just places for quick chats or entertainment.
But Danieltopia shows us that these virtual communities can be just as rich and complex as anything offline.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're fostering a sense of belonging, a shared purpose, even like civic engagement.
Right. And they're not just like escaping reality. Like they're tackling real issues.
Yeah, like leadership, accountability, power dynamics.
Exactly. They're experimenting with different models of governance.
Like their whole king thing.
Yeah, it's like a blend of monarchy, democracy, and even a bit of whimsy.
Don't forget the B movie.
That's, of course, the B movie.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, right? Like, what can we learn from these digital experiments?
Right. Like, could they actually influence how we think about governance in the wider world?
It's possible. Maybe these online communities can be like testing grounds for new ideas.
That's a fascinating thought. Okay, so I wanna go back to something you mentioned earlier
Okay.
about their approach to governance, how they manage to blend that playfulness with seriousness.
Yeah, it's tricky to get right, that balance between like order and chaos.
Right, you need structure, but you also need that sense of fun, that spontaneity. It
Exactly.
reminds me of, when we were kids playing games on the playground.
Oh, yeah.
You had rules, but you also had like freedom to be creative.
And you learn things along the way, right?
Yeah.
About fairness, teamwork, how to deal with conflict.
Exactly. And it feels like Danieltopia has tapped into that same spirit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, so big takeaway time. What are you walking away with from this whole Danieltopia thing?
I think, honestly, I'm just really impressed by how much thought they've put into this. It's clearly a labor of love.
Right. It's inspiring, actually, to see people take ownership of their online spaces like that.
It's a reminder that these spaces could be more than just, echo chambers or places to waste time.
They can be places to learn, to grow, to connect.
And to build something meaningful together.
Well said. So as we wrap up here, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay.
If you were to design the rules for your own online community, what would you prioritize? What values would you, put at the forefront?
What would be your non-negotiables?
Right, and what kind of systems would you put in place to make sure it was a fair and positive experience for everyone?
It's a great question to think about.
It is, and for anyone listening who's intrigued by Danieltopia,
Yeah.
be sure to check out the links we've provided. We've only just scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.